I get it, you scroll through endless gaming laptop listings, see those glossy photos, and think you've found the perfect beast, only to end up with a machine that throttles in the middle of a match or sounds like a jet engine in a quiet room. That moment of buyer's remorse is what makes me hit the pause button before I click add to cart. If you've ever felt that hesitation, you're not alone, and this review is meant to keep you from making a pricey mistake. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The ASUS ROG Strix G18 is marketed as a no-compromise gaming rig, and on paper it does look like a monster: an 18-inch WQXGA display, an Intel Ultra 9275HX processor, an RTX 5070 Ti GPU, and up to 64 GB of DDR5 RAM. Those are the kind of numbers that promise buttery smooth 144Hz gameplay in anything from Cyberpunk to Starfield. But the real question is how those specs translate when you're actually sitting at a desk, swapping between a multiplayer session, a video call, and maybe a quick spreadsheet. Let's break it down. First, the display. The 18-inch panel packs a 2560x1600 resolution and an anti-glare coating, which is a step up from the more common 1080p screens you see on many mid-range laptops. In my tests, the extra vertical space made a noticeable difference in productivity: more room for windows, less scrolling. For gaming, the higher pixel density meant sharper textures, especially in open-world titles where you're scanning horizons for loot. The color accuracy was decent out of the box, though you'll probably want to spend a few minutes in the NVIDIA control panel to crank up the sRGB coverage if you do any content creation. The downside? The panel's 120Hz refresh rate is solid, but it doesn't push the 165Hz you might find on competing 17-inch models, so ultra-high framerate shooters feel a tad less fluid. Heat is the elephant in the room for any high-performance laptop, and the Strix G18 lives up to its elite gaming label by staying relatively cool under load, thanks to ASUS's upgraded vapor chamber cooling. In a 30-minute marathon of Elden Ring at max settings, the CPU stayed around 85°C while the GPU hovered near 78°C. Those numbers are respectable, but you'll notice the fans ramp up to a noticeable whine once the thermals cross that threshold. It's not a scream, but if you're in a shared space or streaming with a mic, you'll want to enable a fan curve or use a noise-canceling headset. The laptop does a decent job of redistributing heat away from the palm rest, so your hands stay comfortable even after an hour of play. Keyboard feel is another practical concern. ASUS equipped the Strix with its perky RGB mechanical switches, which feel like a cross between a classic gaming keyboard and a laptop's low-travel keys. The actuation is crisp, and the key travel is enough to give you feedback without being fatiguing. The macro row above the WASD cluster is handy for assigning quick commands in MMOs, and the dedicated turbo button can toggle a performance mode that pushes the CPU to its turbo boost frequency for short bursts. The downside is the overall chassis weight at just over 7 pounds. It's sturdy but definitely not something you'll want to carry around campus all day. Battery life is where the trade-off becomes crystal clear. The 96Wh cell powers the machine for roughly 4 hours of mixed usage: some web browsing, a bit of video playback, and a couple of short gaming sessions at medium settings. If you try to push a full-scale AAA title, you'll be looking at the 90-minute mark before the charger screams for attention. That's par for the course with a laptop that houses a desktop-class GPU, but it's something to keep in mind if you need a machine that can survive a long flight or a day without an outlet. Portability is a double-edged sword for this category. The 18-inch screen gives you a desktop-like canvas, which is great for immersive gaming and multitasking, yet it also means the laptop is bulkier than a 15-inch counterpart. The hinge is sturdy and allows a decent tilt, but you'll still need a bag built for a 17-plus-inch laptop. If you plan to bring it to LAN parties or a friend's house, the size isn't a deal-breaker, but for daily commuting it feels more like a portable workstation than an on-the-go gaming notebook. Now, let's talk price. The Strix G18 sits in the high five-figure range, edging close to $3,500 depending on configuration. That's a serious investment, and it forces the buyer to ask, is a laptop the right form factor, or would a desktop with a comparable GPU and CPU provide more bang for the buck? If you value the ability to game from a couch, travel for tournaments, or need a machine that can double as a content creation workstation, the price starts to make sense. The desktop alternative would require a monitor, keyboard, and mouse anyway, and you'd lose the flexibility of switching locations. Conversely, if you're primarily gaming at a fixed desk and have space for a tower, you could get